Hello, my Crystal Loves Texas podcast family. We are back this week. We were not here last week. You saw a wonderful encore presentation, but Rebecca and I are back this week. And let me bring her in. There she is right there. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi.
Oh, you sound so sweet. We know that's not the real Rebecca we know.
I'm a little bit more than that.
You got something to say from the very beginning. Hey, can you go horizontal for us? Yay! There she is. Rebecca, I've missed you.
I missed you too. Oh my God.
Oh, and so much stuff has happened since we've talked.
Yes, it has.
Rebecca, are we living in a parallel universe?
I just think we have a lot of incompetent people at the top. Yeah. And it's trickling down to the rest of America.
Yeah, and the thing about it, that's right. When you said it's trickling down to the rest of America, it's making people feel entitled to do things that they never would have considered doing before. And
they wanted to, but they knew they couldn't.
They could not do it and get away with it. You're right. But the thing about it is, here's my thing. When you take that cloak off, I mean, after this is over with, and this will be over with sooner rather than later, after you take that cloak off, you can't walk back into the forest and hide yourself. You've got to live out among everyone else. And then
it's going to take a long time for things to get back in order. I think people have this idea that once everybody leaves, everything is going to go back to normal and we're going to be okay again. No, it is going to take a long time to tread back to where we.
I don't think so, because I think that there are more people out there who have such disdain for what is there now that they're going to go into overdrive trying to make sure that is pushed as far as they can back into the back corners of wherever it came from as possible. Because here's the thing. I think that people, you're going to have a source of embarrassment from people who decided that they wanted to jump into that particular arena with people. What happened to you, Rebecca? Okay, I don't know what happened, but I lost you for a second. And you can't go back. How do they say you can't go back into the closet?
Right.
Once you've exposed yourself, you can't go back in. So what do you think?
One of the decisions, I didn't mean to cut you off, but one of the decisions that was made this week, and I know we're going to talk about that a little later on, but one of the decisions that was made this week, I was listening to a panel of judges and constitutional lawyers. And one thing that they said, well, one of the major decisions, and I'm not trying to drop the bomb because I know we're going to bring that in, but one of the decisions that was made this week, they said it's going to take 20 or 30 years for us to rewrite that wrong. So I'm 42. We're talking about 20 years from now. At the earliest, I'll be 62 years old.
But the thing about it is, do you know how things can be done? You know what? Think about this, and I'm going to put it in the same perspective. Hey, Candace, how are you? We haven't talked to you in so long. I don't know where Candace is, but Candace, if you can hear us, I think she may be able to. Candace, if you can hear us, let me know. I want to get your perspective on a couple of these things. Let me know if we can bring you in. In a few minutes, real quickly, to weigh in on a couple of these. But
yeah, because I would love to hear Candace's opinion.
Oh, I know.
Please.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Everybody thought when COVID hit, okay, everybody said, well, it's taken vaccines. It takes vaccines years and years to be made. and years to be developed and tested. You know what? That COVID vaccine came out, and within 11 months, that thing was ready to hit the pavement going. So I
But we're
think,
a constitutional amendment, though, Crystal. That's a lot different than making a
well,
vaccine.
well, yes, it is. It is. But the thing about it is, it has everything to do with who is poised in the position to be able to make those changes. Now, I think, I really feel that come November, we're going to see some changes that even surprise us. Okay, because I think that there's that much disdain out there. But my my position is this: I believe that if it needs to be done, and the powers that be that are in office at that particular time, they can do whatever they need to do to get it done. Do you see how with this particular administration, they've done whatever they needed to do to get it done? And the thing is, Rebecca, remember this: it has even been it's been done in ways that are unreasonable, unscrupulous, to say the least. And you know what? We have just been given that playing field to play on now. So do you think that when the tide turns, that the other side is not going to be playing by those same rules? You better
I
believe.
hope not. I hope not, because one side loves to be like, well, we're going to do things the right way. I hope this is a wake up call for that
I
particular
think it
side.
is. I hope it is too. You're right, Rebecca. You're right about that, because sometimes you cannot, how do they say, you can't take a knife to a gunfight?
Right.
Yeah. And
And this
I
not a
hope,
gun. This not just a gunfight. This is a machine gun fight.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. And you know what? For someone, think about this gentleman, this guy. I'm not gonna call him a gentleman, but this anyone, I'm sorry. If you can, did you hear Jimmy? Did you hear that? I hope you didn't. Okay, did you hear that, Rebecca?
I heard Jimmy. No, I didn't. I didn't.
Oh, good. Okay, because I have got, okay, my Crystal Loves Texas family. I got my spray bottle here because these cats are not going to steal my thunder tonight. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I keep them away from this camera. But um, let's talk about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Rebecca.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, and you can't say that was just a radicalized someone. No, everything that guy was talking about are the things that are hitting at the heart of where people are right now. And I think he'd been pushed to a certain limit. I do not condone at all what he did, because that was, anyone could have been hurt. Anyone could have been in the line of fire. I don't.
And remember how people were saying that he was a Democrat and all this other stuff? He was not. He was a registered Republican, I found out. So again, it was somebody from their own party.
Yeah. But see, and that's the point that I'm making, Rebecca. Even people in that, on that side of the aisle are really just fed up at this point. Did you watch Jimmy Kimmel last night?
I didn't get a chance to. No, I didn't.
Oh, you need to rewind it. Jimmy Kimmel unloaded. He really unloaded. And the thing about it is, I like Jimmy Kimmel. I take for granted that he is a comedian, and comedians are going to do what comedians do. Mm-hmm. But
to snatch or to threaten to snatch a whole channel completely off the air, ABC, on all streaming stations, news stations. Do you know how many people would lose jobs?
Well, you know what? That's when, but you know what? Let's take it a little further, Rebecca. That's when you absolutely love, even though you don't hear it all the time, but you absolutely want to be a fly on the wall in the congressional chambers when someone like King Charles comes in and gives the kind of speech that he gave.
Yeah.
Because he was not afraid to give it, and he was speaking directly to the heart of what's being of what's going on right now, and he did it unabashedly. He was not ashamed. He did it with pride, and he stood there, like the kids say, with his full chest, and he said what he said. And
And
I'm
you know
glad that
what? I'm not a fan of Charles at all.
I have never
I
been. I've never
but
been. But
I can always give credit where credit is
that's
due.
right. I respect what he did.
And in that moment, he showed up. Now, because
Absolutely.
I feel like the president was so enamored with his royal celebrity, I think all of that went over his head,
Right.
honestly, because he was just so enamored with the royal presence. So it
But you
was
know
just
what?
like,
Did he even realize that he was being I don't want to say humiliated, but did he realize that everything that was being said was directly to him?
no, and that's what I'm saying.
You
No,
don't
I
think
don't
he realized?
because he was so enamored with his royal celebrity. See, Trump is not a very serious person. He's not. You know, you know, for him to have
No, he
a
does not
job,
go deep. He doesn't go deep. No, he doesn't. No,
so anything that represents celebrity, materialism, wealth, that's all he's interested in.
that's true.
So if now I'm pretty sure in a couple days when his staff and the people around him tell him he's been insulted, then it'll be a different ballgame. But as far as King Charles speaking and saying his piece, it was like, okay, and I didn't expect for Trump to catch it because again, he is so enamored by the royal celebrity of King Charles, you know, that
Well, when someone explains it, Rebecca, when someone goes ahead and explains it to him, he
yeah,
is going to well first of all, he's going to come back with some type of really mean-spirited retort.
of course.
Yeah. And he is going to have to explain the fact that he did not get it initially.
Right. Well, no, he won't, because he will never admit anything. That's a mistake. So he won't. But he will say he had some time to reflect, which we all know that his staff telling him exactly was if they decide to tell him at all.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
and because Queen Elizabeth, God rest her soul, but because Queen Elizabeth had an an uh a respect. I couldn't think of the adjective to put in front of respect, but she had such a respect for the Obamas.
She
Matter of fact,
did.
they said, reporters have said, not they, reporters have said that she broke royal protocol and
Right.
went with her security team to go pick Obama up at the airport coming back
Yes.
to Buckingham Palace.
Oh,
She
don't remind Trump of that. Don't
has
remind him of that.
never done that for any world leader
Right.
ever.
I believe it. Yeah.
So the amount of and when her security team tried to talk her out of it, she was so insistent on it that even her kids were saying, "Well, whatever she wants to do, let her do it." But that's the kind, and I said all of that to say this. That's the kind of respect that Trump wants that he will never get.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Now, let me ask you this. We talked about um your president, you know, and being, Jimmy Kimmel said it best like right now. I mean, he said it best last night, and uh he actually went ahead and just broke it down where people have not really wanted to verbalize this. But basically, we're in a situation where he kind of big balled and got us into this war, and now he don't know how to get us out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, he's got a situation now where he calls someone's bluff, and they accepted the call, and now they're holding the cards. So what do
But
you do to
you
get
gotta
us out of it?
you got to think about it. These people have been preparing for war since they were little kids.
Yes, yes,
They had pictures of kids in the Middle East at 3 and 4 years old, and this was like 8, 9 years ago,
Right, right.
shooting rifles, having target practice.
Yes. And
So if
Rebecca, they
you
have even even the entire theology. It's a martyristic theology that you die for the
right,
state. That's the greatest sacrifice that you can give.
right. So if these people have been preparing for war, every generation has been preparing for war and
Right,
has had some type of military training
right,
since they've held guns before they held pencils to write.
right. You're right.
What makes you think that they were not going to take you up on the challenge? Did
And to
you
be
think
prepared. That's right. That's right.
right,
And whenever you have a society or a government where the people are trained and the people are conditioned and taught that this is the greatest thing that you can do is to die for your country, that's the greatest sacrifice that you can give, then you see war as a completely different thing. You see dying as a completely different thing. There's no end that you won't go to.
right. So that's what I'm saying. So if you know that, see, and this is, and but you know what? Other presidency, other administrations know this history about people in the Middle East, and that's why every single one of them have practiced diplomacy
That's
because they
right.
know that we are, if we go to war with these people, we are going to war. They did in
Yes.
Afghanistan, they did in Iraq, they did in
Right.
Iran, and they see where
Yeah.
that has gotten them
That's
because
right.
these people have been, they don't care, they will do diplomacy, but they would rather fight.
And Rebecca, here's the thing. Think about how long we occupied Afghanistan, and as soon as the troops were gone, automatically it went back to that exact same type of government that we had been there so long. Because here's the thing, regardless of what the United States wants, it doesn't matter what the United States wants for the United States over there. If they don't want it for their country, if that is not in their long range plan, if that's not what they consider to be important, then it's not going to hold. It's not going to hold. And we've expended lives, and we've already said, and just like today on the news, I was looking at ABC this morning, and they said, so many of the senators from both sides of the aisle, so many of the congressmen from both sides of the aisle have said to Pete Hegseth, listen, we've expended a whole lot of our firepower, our missiles, our things that we had in stockpiled, you know, and to the tune of billions of dollars.
Right,
And our supply is finite. We don't just have, we're not just manufacturing that constantly. And
right.
that wasn't considered. It seems like that wasn't considered when that decision to do that was made, especially with someone who does not, who will not quit. Iran will not quit. Once you coax them into something, they're not going to quit.
And that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? Because and why aren't they not going to quit? Because it's a militarized society.
Yes.
Again, these people, and I don't
I
mean
can
to say,
barely see your face.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Pull back some. There you go.
Um, big. It's a militarized society.
Yeah.
Again, they preach war from the time these people
Yes.
are born.
Yes.
They're how our kids, and we're all complaining about our kids going to war. They're not complaining about their children going to war
And Rebecca,
because
it's for the good of Allah. That's the
yeah,
thing. When you have that type of mindset, and I am not belittling anyone's beliefs, but when your belief in the defense of what is yours is all tied into um, what you believe, what you perceive and believe to be for the greater good of God, that's a totally different thing.
right, right,
It, you know, and I don't know. I'm hoping that someone can get to him and be able to be the voice of reason before so many more American lives are expended.
And see, I don't think so. So this is why the midterms is so important, because Trump has already said, he's even extended the draft to 42 years old. Luckily, by the time the draft get here, thank God, and he's taken away all of the stipulations for the draft. So he doesn't care if you're pregnant, you're going to war. He doesn't care if you're in college on a scholarship, you're going to war. The only stipulation is that you meet the age requirement from 18 to 42. And thank God I'll be 43 in November.
Okay, but Rebecca, here's the thing. It's so important. It is so important that you don't, for no reason at all, end up on the bad end of someone's of an entire country's hand. You don't want to end up for no reason in a bad position with them. Let me tell you why. You don't have, when you say the war is over, it's never over. You get somebody that'll come in and a person will come in and terrorize a government building. You have someone that'll come in and drive a car bomb into a school. You see what I mean? Right here in the United States. So just because you say it's over, it doesn't mean that it's over. It's over when they say it's over. That's why, you're dealing with a completely different mindset. A completely different mindset that you can't control. And that's the thing. When someone is feeling as though they can control everything, that's putting everyone in a lot of jeopardy. That's putting everyone in a very, very precarious situation, because we never know where it's coming from. That's the thing. We never know where we may think everything is fine, and we're four years down the road, and boom, there it is.
And
you understand what I'm saying?
And just to think that he extended the draft, or is going to extend the draft. That's why I'm praying that the midterm.
Explain how important that is, Rebecca, before we go on to our next.
Let me explain to you guys why the midterms are so important. Because you have the draft is coming in December. That date is not arbitrary. It is by design. They're waiting for the midterms to take over. Okay. So if your kids, or you are from the ages of 18 to 42, okay, they don't care about you having an arrest. They've taken away all of the stipulations. So the requirement that you have to meet is age. If we all got nieces, nephews, cousins, daughters, sons, granddaughters, great granddaughters, sons, husbands, friends.
Right.
If you guys don't go out and vote in the midterms, our people are going to be sanctioned to a war that they have nothing to do with. So, and no, your child is not going to be exempt. I think I lost Crystal. I think we lost Crystal. Did I touch something that ain't no business touching? Well, I'm going to finish this. I'm sure Crystal will come back in. You are going to, if you midterms, if you don't go vote in the midterms, your children could go to war. All of the things that Donald Trump is doing, he will have absolutely no guardrails. He barely has any guardrails now.
That's
now, just imagine, and just imagine what it's going to be if the Republicans somehow take back the House and the Senate again. He's really not going to have.
I can't see it, Rebecca. There are so many Republican people. Now you still got to remember, even in that age group that we're talking about, let's talk about those the dyed in the wool Republicans, okay? Let's talk about those. Those are going to be in the age group of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, okay? Family farms lost, jobs lost, benefits lost. A very real possibility of health insurance being lost, the threat of Social Security being taken.
For some of them, health insurance has already been lost.
Yeah,
for a great deal of Americans already because of the big deal.
And the thing about it is, you finally have people. You finally not. To me, I'm not sure what took so long, but a lot of times people are very reluctant to admit when they are wrong. That I didn't make a good decision. People are reluctant. They're much more likely to be silent than admissive of the fact that they made a mistake. But here's the thing: I do not, people probably thought that Donald Trump was going to stand on honor and values. But the thing about it is, when you have no honor and you have no values, what do you stand on?
But he never had honor, and he never had. And I don't understand why people. Well, I do understand, and people may get mad at me when I say this, but I mean, it is what it is, and I'm gonna call a spade a spade. What it was racism. I don't care nothing about no eggs. I don't care nothing about no bacon. I don't care nothing about no gas, because the last few months of Biden's presidency, we had all but beaten inflation.
Right.
Literally down at 3.2%. So I don't want to hear about,
the economy. Yeah.
Right. Because the economy was finally coming back in control.
That's right. From COVID. That's right.
You voted on racism.
Right.
You voted on misogyny. You voted on xenophobia. That's what you voted for.
Right.
You can sit here and then everybody was saying, people, I've heard this phrase so much, so now it's to the point where it sickens me. Well, people are voting against their own interests. No, they're voting for their interests. Their interest is racism, misogyny, xenophobia. That's what their interest is. They want to make sure that certain people in society don't have rights. And they felt like that everybody else's rights was going to be taken away and they were going to be safe. Nobody explained to them that we no longer live in a segregated society.
Right. Everybody is thrown in there together.
Right. Nobody
Rebecca, even in the same households.
Right. Nobody explained to them that not only do we not live in a segregated society, we live in a globalized society.
Right.
That means whatever affects America is going to affect the rest of the world.
That's right.
So
that's absolutely right.
Nobody explained that to these people. So the decisions and choices that are made in Washington will affect everybody. The only people that may escape the effects of the decisions are the billionaires, because they have money to move around and not deal with what's going on.
Right.
I don't understand why people didn't understand that.
Well, why do you think that it's so difficult? I was watching a video the other day of a conference, and I can't remember the name of a presenter, but there are so many, she made such a strong point in saying, and when she was making this point, she said, I'm sitting here in a auditorium, and it was an auditorium with nothing but Caucasian people who were in that auditorium. It was very homogenous in the auditorium. And she said, and she was a Caucasian presenter, she said, I want to ask you something. She said, I know that, that I'm sitting here and the vast majority of these people consider themselves to be Christians. You give to charities, you help the poor, you feed the hungry, and she went on to and described many of the things of the tenets that we subscribe to when we say that we are Christians, in the heart. And she
Mhm.
said, but I want you right now, raise your hand right now if you would change places right now with an African American person. If you could change and live in their skin right now, raise your hand. And you know what? They panned that entire audience. How many hands do you think were up?
None.
None. And she said, I don't know if you understand the point that I just proved. The point that I just proved is that you know that African American people are treated differently because nobody raised your hand. But you're comfortable for that to be the case and not do anything about it.
That was Jane Elliott. I
Yeah.
saw that. I
And
saw
the
that.
thing about it is, and for that, because I know that there are a lot of good people out there, Rebecca, who do not consider themselves racist, and they may not be. Okay. But here's the thing. No one raised their hand, which means that they're very cognizant of the fact that people are treated differently. And I don't want to be treated the way that they are treated.
And here's the thing. For a lot of, and I'm not even making excuses for,
And,
and
and
I'm
I mean that. Let me go ahead and put a caveat in that. Not just African American people. She could probably, in this day and time, she probably could have switched that out with Iranian people or Middle Eastern people. You understand?
anybody
Or
of color.
Somali.
That's not.
Yeah.
So, and let me say this, and you're probably gonna be surprised at what I'm about to say, Crystal. I almost guarantee you're gonna be surprised. I think what it is too with a lot of white people is they've been shielded by their privilege that they don't see what's going on.
That's true. They're not trying to not see it, but if it's not affecting you, sometimes it's difficult to see.
And I'll give you a case in point. I was watching, I was on TikTok last night preparing for our show. And yeah, y'all, sometimes I get on TikTok to prepare for the podcast. That's one of my things. But I was preparing for the show and I was just, flipping through things. And it was a video of him on MSNBC.
Right.
And I remember watching this episode. So but even though I had seen this episode before, I still looked at the video with Eddie Galad, Dr. Eddie Galad. And if you don't know who he is, he's a Yale, a Harvard professor, Morehouse graduate,
Right.
Harvard professor, and he teaches on race, religion, gender studies.
Okay.
He's spoken in many AFT conventions and conferences. He's a
Right.
very, very articulate Black guy. Just love him to death.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dr. Galad was on there with I can't think of her name, but it was her show. Her name is not coming to me right now.
Okay.
But Stephanie Rule, that's who, Stephanie Rule. It was her
Okay.
show. And Stephanie was saying, well, Eddie, I just don't, and they're very formal. She wasn't being disrespectful. They're very
Right.
informal on their show.
Right.
So she said, Eddie, I don't see, no, I think people really were upset about gas prices why Trump won. They were talking about why Trump really won.
Right.
I think people really, really upset about the gas prices, the price of groceries. And he was getting so infuriated with her that he finally said this, the quiet part out loud, made her be quiet. Because I don't even think she even realized
Yeah.
what he was trying to tell her. And he basically was saying, Stephanie, no. Stephanie, no. Stephanie, stop.
Right.
No. This is not what they voted for.
Right.
They voted for racism. And she was just like, but do you really? He said, and the reason that you're having such a hard time accepting that because your privilege has shielded you from it.
Right. Right.
And you could see tears kind of welling up in her eyes. Like, I think for the first time. And she does consider herself one of the fair ones.
Right.
Equal playing field.
And let me make a point, Rebecca. Privilege is not a thing. When we use the word privilege, we're not using that as a whipping stick. It
No,
just is a fact. It's just a fact. Yeah.
no,
And
it-
Rebecca, let me put it in context. Rebecca, you have had the privilege of being raised in a two-parent family and going to college and earning your degree and not having to struggle in your life. That's a form of privilege.
right.
Okay, that's a form of privilege. And the thing about it is, if you were not exposed to, or maybe even been related to, or gone to school with, and seen people who have not had that, your frame of reference would be different.
Right.
And there are
Right.
people who look like you who have not experienced, who have not been privy to the other side. I have been privy to all socioeconomic walks of life, so I have empathy
Right. I
for
did.
for certain things, and it's because my mother made certain that I was exposed to that. I
Right.
got to see it. So she didn't have to tell me, you are very privileged to have been able to travel the world, to be able to do these kind of things. She did not try to shield me from those people who did not have that. But because she didn't, Rebecca, and because your parents didn't, they didn't have to tell you that you need to feel really blessed and reach out and try to help someone else.
And two things that did it for me. Well, before I say that, so yeah, but I think a lot of people, a lot of white people don't understand when we say that they're privileged. They don't understand that. And when we talk about systemic racism, right? The root word in systemic racism is system. So what is system, right?
Right.
So what does that system consist of?
Mm-hmm.
The healthcare system, the educational system,
Right.
the justice system,
Financial.
right? The financial system. Why are those systems inherently racist? Well, because when those systems were developed in the United States of America, Black people were slaves.
Yeah.
We were not supposed to ever
Have privilege of that.
participate.
Yes.
We were never ever supposed to participate in those systems that were set up. We were always supposed to be subservient in the system.
Right.
So what does that mean? We were always supposed to serve
Right.
them
Yeah.
forever. That was
Right.
the entire plan. And if you don't believe me, let's go back to the Constitution where
Right.
we're still referred to, even today in 2020, in the year of our Lord 2026, we are still referred to 3/5 of a person. That
Right.
has not been ratified out of the Constitution,
No, you can't take that out. You can't
right?
take that out. Yeah.
So that's what we mean when we say we have systemic racism,
Right.
because these systems that were built and put in place were designed to keep
To
African
exclude.
Americans
They were
out. Matter
very
of fact,
exclusionary.
they
Yeah.
were there to exclude white women. The only
Yes.
people that were there to the only systems that were put in place for the benefit of anybody was
Right.
straight white Christian men.
Yes. And let's go a step further. Even poor ones. Because think about it. When you think
Well,
about it,
even
when that
didn't come until like a little bit later on.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't poor white people were not supposed to be able to benefit from many of these things too.
Right.
Especially when you look at things like education. No,
Yeah.
that was not set up for the masses.
So
You know,
when we are asking and still fighting in 2026 for justice and equality to be presented, it's because now we are in a different time period. We are in a different place. And we're still fighting for our spots just to even participate in the systems that are there.
and may I add this: people of color all people of color are not going anywhere. People of color are not ceasing to further their education. People of color are not ceasing to open businesses. People of color are not ceasing to do any of these things that are going to advance their position in the United States. So to me, the most prudent thing to do, and you know, in my views, Rebecca, they're always going to be utopian, okay? But the most prudent thing to do is do whatever is within your power to make certain that everyone here has an opportunity to reach their maximum potential. And then you turn around and see what kind of America you have. Now, with that, because we only got a few minutes left, Rebecca, we got a couple of other things we want to talk about. Now, I'm going to, you know, we talked about this earlier, but I am going to immediately segue over into what's going on right here in Houston. So we know that last week, Dr. Candace exposed.
My
Yeah,
sister.
Dr. Candace exposed a rogue cop in Houston that really got drunk and put all of her dirty laundry out there for everyone to see. And I think that youth played a part in her not being able to bridle her mouth to the point that it lost her job and probably every other opportunity to have a corrections officer or peace officer's job in the state of Texas. But it really, I'm sure, made her a pariah even in her community. And it makes you wonder. And what I'm talking about is Officer Ashley Gonzalez. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we've since that point, Rebecca, we've heard so many people bring this discussion up, to the surface, talking about the relationship between African Americans and Hispanics. And I want to speak to that because I know that you and I have always taught in a majority Hispanic schools. And, you know, let me say this. Let me say this, and I want to state this for the record. It is a dangerous thing to put and place all people into a certain category, or even say most, okay? Because all people do not fit into a certain category, okay? I have been around people of all races. I've been around Hispanic people, Mexican people, Latino people, all of my life. And I'm trying to narrow down a time when I have experienced a disdain coming from that direction. And Rebecca, I literally couldn't narrow it down. Okay. I couldn't.
I've experienced it.
Okay. And I'm not saying, wait a minute. And what I'm saying is that I cannot speak for other people's lived experience. I cannot. But I have seen, there's an old saying, and we've all heard this because you hear it from your grandparents, great-grandparents, and they say it like this: there is no difference between a black snake, a brown snake, and a white snake. They will all do what?
Bite you.
They will. If it's the wrong kind of snake, and if you make it mad enough, it'll bite you. Okay. So here's the thing. My lived experience has not shown me that. Tell me about the time that you experienced something a little bit different and what your general experience has been.
I was working in a school, and I was actually not at the school where we worked at together. Mm-hmm. But I was working at a school in about 2013. It was a charter school. It was 98% Hispanic.
Okay.
Students and teachers. And it wasn't the students actually, because the kids loved me. It was the staff.
Okay.
And I was really, really cool with the principal, who was Hispanic.
Right.
And when I say he and I were tight,
yeah,
we were tight.
Yeah.
So, he was like, I was walking and I was teaching third grade at the time. And I was walking and he said, Miss Williams, you look so despondent. What's going on? I said, oh my God, I just ran out of ink uh in my
Printer.
printer
Yeah.
and I'm not able to print anything.
Lessons. Yeah.
I said, well, that's fixable. Just come to my office and get it printed.
Right.
So and and we were talking and laughing, and then he had went and got tacos and brought me some. And okay, so the secretary, I found out, did not like me very much because she had an issue with how close me and the principal were.
But was that racial?
Yeah, it was. It very much was. At first,
Okay.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so at first. But I noticed how the other relationships with the other teachers who were who were of the same race, she didn't have a problem with. But it was like anytime I asked for him or anytime I needed something, she would have an attitude. She would talk to me crazy. She would try to go off on me in front of everybody else. And it was weird behavior. And I thought I was the only black teacher, but it was another black teacher who was in the 8th grade who and they were also close, the principal. And because he was just a friendly guy, he
Right.
reminded me a lot of Robeson.
Right.
So he, the same situation.
Situation. Yeah.
And then at one time, she threw a piece of paper at me, Crystal.
Okay. Well, let's say this. Let's say this. Let's bring it back around to former Houston police officer Ashley Gonzalez. How do you think now? Subsequently, she came on and she did a post explaining that if she hurt someone's feelings, she deeply regrets it. But even when you start something with "if I hurt someone's feelings," that is you're defending to a certain degree what you've done. Yes, it wasn't said that what I said was hurtful and it was absolutely inappropriate. That's not how it was couched. It was, if I hurt your feelings, then I'm sorry. But
and I think you've had this topic on your show before. I just wanted to clarify, and I'm gonna go through it real briefly, Crystal, I promise, because I see it the time.
Okay.
A lot of people don't understand why what is this tension in the black and brown community? So I'm gonna take it back because y'all know I'm a historian. Me and Crystal both are historians. So during Jim Crow, black Latino people were also getting heavily discriminated against. And it got to a point where Latino people and black people were meeting to try to figure out how they were going to, overcome this racism, right? And supposedly out of this is where Cesar Chavez, got his political views from. The powers that be, we know that's the federal government. The powers that be said, "Oh no, if this black and brown coalition happens, they're going to overpower us and take over, because this movement is going to be something that we can't handle. So how can we break this movement up?" The powers that be, the federal government, they're all about divide and conquer to keep power. So what happened was they were trying to figure out a way. So the solution that they came up with, and I'm saying federal government came up with, we would allow Hispanics to come in the front door. They can sit at the counters. They can sit at the restaurants. They could still be visible in our spaces, but not have visibility. For those of you that, and let me make it make sense for a little bit. So when we say they can be visible, they can be seen, but they will not be a part of, they will not be participatory in whatever we got going on. So, but the fact that you even let some of them in the door, in their minds, the mindset was, oh, they accept us. And these black people are still terrible people. right? But they still had the same type of rules for them. You have to be as Europe, as close to Europe. You had to look more European than you had to Latino. So you had to have the small features, you had to have the straight hair, you had to have, you know, the light eyes. You had to look as close to European as possible for you to even get in the door. That's where a lot of this hatred between, it's white supremacy, right? And that's what it is. It's white
I'm gonna throw another monkey wrench in that, Rebecca, and I'm just gonna be very honest about it.
and
Okay.
that's the historical perspective.
Okay.
So
I'm
this
gonna
is
throw
what
a,
we
that certainly may have been from the Jim Crow files back when. Okay. I'm gonna throw another monkey wrench in it, and I'm gonna say this, and this is true across the board as far as discrimination. Well, I'm gonna say racism comes in. Okay. The more economically privileged you are, the less threatened you feel by others. The more economically privileged you are, the less threatened you feel by others, because you don't ever feel as though you're in a position for someone to take what's yours. You understand what I'm saying? It's usually going to be the people who are, and just think about this, they're taking our jobs, they're taking our house. You understand what I'm saying? It's not, you don't have Jeff Bezos and the like of Jeff Bezos worried about somebody coming in taking his job or taking his house. And roll with me on this. Basically, and that's a fact. You do not generally, the more you are financially independent, the less you are threatened by someone else taking what's yours. Okay. Those people who are competing for the jobs and the things that I don't want to say, some of the lower paying jobs and things, they feel as though it could possibly be a threat. But I'm going to roll it back around to this with Officer Gonzalez. The Houston Police Department has, I'm sure, a very, very rigorous test that they have to take. That is a psychological exam before they put officers out there. And from my understanding, she passed with flying colors. It makes me wonder where this came from. If she was saying this kind of thing 5 years ago, or if it's the kind of thing to feel as though she is more accepted, she wanted to adopt what is a mainstream, completely completely right to the right idea of what she thinks people want to hear, to make her feel as though she is accepted.
Well, Crystal, I'm gonna have to disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
When you say the more economic position people are in, the more it's like they don't worry about taking jobs. Because if that was the case,
I'm not going to say taking jobs. I'm saying people feeling threatened by people.
Well, no, because then if that was the case, Crystal, Project 2025 wouldn't exist.
Well, but Rebecca, I mean, you're always going to have a veer off from that. But by and large, if you look at things societally, if you go over right now, think about, and this is not rocket science. If you go over to some of the most elite schools in Houston or whatever, they're diverse. Okay, you may not have as many, but they go and they do all things together. It's not Yeah.
But how are some of these people treated? Because I've heard people who've gone to elite private schools to say there was absolutely racism there. Absolutely.
Well, Rebecca, there's racism in society, right?
I mean,
Right?
it is,
Yeah.
but I
But
just
there's
don't want us to.
this is my point. This is my point. The more the more that people have been able to attain, the less they feel threatened by someone else being able to attain the same thing. I went to a private school in Houston, and I can sit here and tell you that there were some kids at that school who wanted to try to separate themselves from others, but make no mistake, they were trying to separate themselves on the basis of who they felt was more elite. It didn't have anything to do with race, who they
No,
felt had more money or status.
I see what you're
And
saying, but
everybody was in the private school together.
yeah, but I've also known people that have gone to private school. They said that was the most racist experiences that they had ever had.
And
So
like I said, there's going to be race. To say that racism is removed from society, that would be absolutely, absolutely ridiculous. Because as long as we have the society that we live in, it's going to be there. But my point is simply that I think that has much more to do to me, and I respect where you're coming from. This has been my lived experience that I've seen. Some of my friends that I went to school with, and I'm still very good friends with now, even though they're in different parts of the world. Okay, different parts of America, different parts of Texas. They are of different races, but we spent the night at each other's house. We babysat together. We did everything together, and I never felt different at their houses. They come to my house, and do different things. We do things together all the time on the weekends. And here's my point. People generally are going to feel most threatened by anyone that they feel is, I don't want to say coming for what they have, but if they don't feel threatened by that, they feel a whole lot more open to allowing other people and a piece of the pie or an opportunity, but that, like I said, that was simply my experience. And it's been my experience all the way from when I was in grade school. However, I know that does exist in some places. I know that it exists.
yeah, because I'm saying if that was the case, Project 2025 wouldn't exist.
Well,
Because
you're dealing in absolutes. You're dealing in
no,
absolutes. And
I'm really not. Because
what I'm saying is that there are no absolutes. I think both of us are really kind of saying the same thing. There are no absolutes. All people who are affluent people are not going to be that way. There are going to be some. But all people who are affluent people are not going to be the ones who prescribe the Project 2025.
Right, because the most of the people who put Project 2025 together, about 98% of them are elite, affluent people.
Yeah, and they don't represent the majority of society. But I think we're saying the same thing. But and my point is simply this: when people have the opportunity, and this is any people. I'm not simply saying white people. I'm saying people in general. When people have the opportunity to attain the pinnacle of what they're able to attain, they feel less threatened by people. That's all I'm saying. Okay, now, and we're saying the same thing. I absolutely get what you're saying, Rebecca. It was one more thing that we wanted to touch on tonight, and I'm gonna let you have the last word on it. Let me pull it up really quick because I don't want us to miss this. Okay, Rebecca, and you are going to be the one to talk about this, and I'm just gonna chime in a little bit on the end. What the Supreme Court did this week in terms of the Voting Rights Act. How do you think that? What do you think the backlash is that is going to be on both sides?
Well, first of all, let me say this really quickly. I was talking to my dad about it, and he kind of laughed to himself. And I was like, Daddy, ain't nothing about this funny. And he made a comment to me, and I think it's gonna stick with me forever, even after he's long gone.
Uh-huh.
And he said, I never thought that I would live to see it ever swing. And I reflected on that statement. And then later on, I cried about it. And I'm going to tell you why. Because my dad was one of those people that was caught up in the TSU riots, the famous TSU riots. My dad went to jail that night. That was one
Right.
of his
In the
dorm.
60s, late 60s, yeah, 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, that got raided. My dad also went to jail in Florida,
Right.
um, the Florida Fairgrounds. That's
Right.
also he was caught up in that when he was at Florida A&M. My dad went to Florida A&M and TSU,
Right.
and
Yes.
my heart broke because I said, "This is what." And my dad's name is currently still in the FBI files.
Okay. So why did your heart break?
My heart broke because I said he went through all of that. He went through all of that to see that everything that he did was in vain at 82 years old.
But Rebecca, and you
I
know, this is the proverbial Crystal and Rebecca. When that happened, I immediately looked at the glass as not half empty. Not that we've lost everything. I took it in the vein of, okay, this is what is trying to be done. So what needs to be done to circumvent that on the other end? I didn't say, oh well, we just lost and we just no.
no. I'm just saying in that moment my heart broke because
Yeah.
I knew that my dad had, and not just my dad, my mom too, but my heart broke because my dad's name is in the FBI files still to this day
Mm-hmm.
because he decided to fight for my right to vote.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
watching the panel discussion. I was
Uh-huh.
watching. So yeah, it broke me because I know the fight that he had to put up. Not just him, but people in his generation for us to be here and to see that go down the drain in less than 60 years was insane to me. So then I was watching that's when I was telling you earlier in the show where I was watching the journalists, I mean the constitutional lawyers and the judges, and they were talking about the ramifications of this decision.
Mm-hmm.
They said that this constitutional amendment that now had that Alito and Roberts decided to join the majority and snatch the voting rights away, the gerrymandering rights away. I mean, the gerrymandering and rolling out these black and Hispanic districts because that's what it was basically doing. That it's going to take 20 to 20 years at the earliest, 40 years at the latest to fix. I'm 42 years old. By the time this gets undone, if it ever gets undone, I'll be 62 years old.
But Rebecca, you've got Supreme Court justices. Is anybody you may have what, two that are under 50 years old? So
Three.
like my sis, okay. So like my sister said, they got one foot in the grave and one foot on a banana peel anyway. Okay. And once the administration changes happen and other justices are placed there.
This is a constitutional amendment. It doesn't happen. It's not one of those things that's going to turn around in 5 years, turn around in 10 years.
Rebecca, it can, because the thing about it is it depends on how our not just the court system, but how our Congress is stacked. That's what it had. It can turn around within a 3-year period if Congress is stacked the right way and the votes are the right way. There's different ways that you can pass an amendment and propose an amendment. So things can change if the right things are in order. They can.
So here's the thing with that, and this is, like I said, I was crying big tears the other night because it was
Mm-hmm.
out of frustration and anger,
I know.
right? Like we, and then to think about what my family has fought, in order, and I think that's why I'm so passionate because my family has fought
Right.
for this legacy to turn around. So now we got to mobilize. I
Yes.
think for people who I think for people because I said I ain't gonna lie to you, Crystal, in a split and a half second before I really just stopped and thought and reflected. I said, well, if my black district is going to be wiped out, I'm done voting. There's no point because I don't want a Republican representing me ever because you don't stand for what I stand for, you know. And I talked to I was talking to my family, not just my mom and dad, but my uncles and stuff, because we were all on a group thread talking about this. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't have a representative in my black district, I don't see the point of me voting anymore. I don't even see the point of me mobilizing people to vote anymore because I don't want somebody who has an opposite ideology making laws on my behalf. No.
Okay.
So, my uncles and them were like, Rebecca, we hear you. And that's understandable. But let's think about it like this.
Mm-hmm.
If you do nothing, nothing happens. And that changed my whole perspective. And it changed my whole perspective simply because it's like, damn, this is another thing we got to mobilize and fight for, but it's worth fighting for.
Now, Rebecca, with that in mind, what you just said, I want you to tell us from your perspective and for everybody here in Houston right now, what is going to be the charge of every person who is of voting age, who has children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, cousins of voting age. What is it going to be their charge to do prior to November?
Well, first of all, please don't take the attitude that I was originally going to take. Let's start there. Please don't take that attitude.
Yes.
Because now we have to mobilize. We're in a situation where we don't have a choice. And it's no longer about us just registering people to vote, making sure they go to the polls, and making sure they vote. We have to, from this point on, these people that want to be hired for a job to sit in these state and local seats, they're going to have to tell us and show us that they mean business when they say that we're gonna have to hold their feet to the fire.
That's
we're
right.
Gonna have
that accountability is so important.
We're gonna have to hold them accountable because the maps are done at the state level. They're not done in Washington.
Right.
The maps are done at the state legislature. So not only do you vote for the president, the vice president, not only do you vote for the governor and the lieutenant governor, you have to vote down ballot.
Right.
Congress people, Congress people, state representatives, state senators, down to judges, even at the municipal level.
Absolutely.
Because what you have a situation now, it's definitely trickled down.
Yes.
So we have a Texas, along with the other southern states. The blue states are going to be fine because the blue states are going to make sure that their people are protected.
Right.
But it's us red state folks that's going to have to fight like hell.
Yeah.
And hold these people accountable.
Yeah. So
So
Rebecca, yes, go ahead.
the charge is, you asked what the charge is, Crystal.
Yeah,
The
what do we need to
charge
do? Yeah.
the charge is to make sure that we get a Democrat in every, if not every single seat, at least 80% of our state legislatures, from the state house, I mean, from the state representative to the state Senate seat, needs to be a Democrat.
Right. Absolutely.
That is the
Absolutely.
only way our vote is going to be protected in the state of Texas.
And
And
we've
we
got
have,
to continue to vote.
right,
Just
and
like
not
just like
only
the other side has
continue,
been doing historically. We've got to continue to vote. And when it becomes comfortable, don't slack off.
right,
That's for
and not
the hard
only,
work. When you have come to a place where you're comfortable and things are going good, that's when you dig your heels in and you decide, how am I going to keep it this way? What do we need to do to keep it this way?
right, because one thing I did agree with Roland Martin. Roland Martin said this decision is not for 26. This decision ain't even for 28. This decision is for 20 and 30 years down the line.
Hmm.
Because they know in 26 and 28 it's over
Yeah.
for the Republicans. They
Right.
know this. But if they can gerrymander everything out in the South, then that's what they're going to do.
Well, but you know what, Rebecca, we got this situation, and I know we got to jump off of this off of the podcast, but here's the thing. Where like you said, we have been placed in a position and backed up against the wall, so that we've got to go ahead and bring that gun to a gunfight. Okay.
Yeah.
So if the next president, who's the Democratic president who's elected, they're going to have to decide that they're going to do redistricting too.
Yeah, it's going to be an all-out brawl now.
That's
right.
right. That's
So
right.
I it's going to be an all-out brawl now, and it's going to have to be an all-out brawl
Yeah.
because
But you know what? That is the cards that they decided they wanted to play with.
right. So what we have to do now, we can't cry about it. You know, and I knew it was coming. I was just hoping for 3.5 seconds that somebody on that other side would just come to their senses and say, no, that's not right. But again, that's utopian.
Yeah.
But now we just gotta dig our heels in and mobilize, and we can't be playing. Texas has been
right.
under a 30-year almost dictatorship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was more than 30, almost a 40-year dictatorship.
Well, and that is if things are left like they are. But I have no doubt in my mind, because things have been done in this way, as soon as that regime changes, the exact same thing is gonna be done in the opposite direction.
So that means we need to get out and vote for Jenna Hinojosa.
That's
and
right.
make sure
That's right.
that we get enough people on the line to vote her out, because this is serious.
That's right.
You know, and I know everybody was devastated about the Clay and Meg breakup, but this is more important. This is about our lives being on the line.
Right.
And we have to get our young people to understand. And now is not the time to get despondent. I know, because for about 3 hours, I was despondent. And I was me, and everybody knows I'm Miss Political Polly. I was even saying, you know what, this ain't worth it no more. It's just not, you know, but we can't have that attitude, because
go ahead.
Because if nobody does nothing, nothing is going to be done.
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Exactly.
Rebecca, go ahead and in 3 words, what do we need to do come November, and remind people what they got to do if they're not registered.
Mobilize the vote. We got to mobilize the vote. Mobilization should be the action word from now until November 3rd.
Right.
Mobilize, 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 mobilize. Because now we don't have we don't have a choice. Because now healthcare is on the line, education is on the line, our economic future is on the line.
Even voting for women is on the line.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Y'all are complaining about how everything is, and it's because we don't have people in place making decisions on our behalf.
Right.
They're
So
making
Rebecca,
decisions in the best interest of the people who are putting money in their congressional seat.
absolutely. Rebecca, we said a lot. And I made myself tired. But you know what? It needed to be said. Sometimes one thing I'm glad that we do, we talk about the things that aren't necessarily the easy things to talk about. But I don't think that anyone could argue that our hearts are not in the right place, and we are in it for fairness for everyone, for rights and privileges for everyone who lives in this country, for people to be able to have an opportunity to be the very, very best that they can be and have the fruits of your labor.
Because it affects one, is going to affect all.
Everyone. So Rebecca, let's tell our viewers what we tell them every week, and we will see them again next week, right? We will be here. No encore performance. No encore presentation next week. We will be here next week. But Rebecca, like we say every week,
we can do
it. See ya. Bye, guys.